All right. Start. So send this down right here. So this is take 2 of a continuous stream of consciousness that I'm going to be giving you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining in and seeing how the June challenge went. Hopefully I can make it through this whole thing without pausing or doing anything dumb. I'll tell you guys right off the bat, I did not complete the challenge. I gave myself a lot of books, and I only ended up reading 3 of those books and one whole manga series that was not associated to this challenge at all. But I'm not mad about how things turned out. I'm actually quite okay with it. I wish things had gone a little bit different. I really wish that I had finished all the books, but I'm okay with what happened and how many books that I read. And let me tell you about them. So first, let me tell you why I think it's okay that I didn't finish all these books. So the books that I did finish in this challenge were Song of Achilles, Talking to Strangers, and Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I also ended up reading Demon Slayer in its entirety on a website because I didn't want to buy all 20 volumes or something. I couldn't do it. But I'm not saying you should or shouldn't use these websites if you don't have money like me, a college student. So, moving on. I ended up reading that instead of reading Demon Slayer. I ended up reading Demon Slayer instead of reading Death Note. I still ended up reading a whole series, but it wasn't a part of the book challenge that I issued myself. But I think that's okay. I still ended up reading 3 books out of the, 6 books that I gave myself. Can't even remember. But I think that's okay. I still ended up learning a lot from these books about what some of my strengths are in reading and what I've learned from them, specifically reading a nonfiction book that's out of my comfort zone and reading 2 fantasy fiction novels, So I also want to talk about some of the things I feel like I did wrong in this challenge. Yeah, I guess wrong would be the right word. So, going into it, I gave this challenge to myself way too late in the game, especially with that many books. I didn't realize how much time I would be doing other stuff, be it spending a lot of time with my family, doing errands, and basically consuming other media that wasn't book related, because even though I had all this time to read books, I just didn't want to. Once I had finished Song of Achilles, I didn't immediately want to go and start reading Talking to Strangers. It just there was that disconnect where it's like, oh my goodness, I made myself this challenge, I made a video about it, but I want to go and do something else. I want to go and do something different. I just want to watch something, and I love watching stuff. I'm a film student. I was out watching a lot of stuff when I should have been reading. There was just a lot of distractions, and of course I didn't have any problem with it because I was watching Game of Thrones and I was watching The Boys, so I didn't see a problem with it. But that's one of the things that I realized that I did wrong. I let myself get distracted way too easily, and I didn't let myself really get into these books like I should have. The thing that I struggled with was that I forced myself to read a whole bunch of books. And now that's not a bad thing if you're the type of person that you need to kind of flip that switch in your brain. You need to say, okay, I'm going to read all these books by the end of this month and I'm going to get a reward or something like that. Then, that's totally fine. I thought I was that type of person, but obviously this month didn't go like that. My brain was kind of like, oh, it all feels like homework. You shouldn't do that. And that's where the distractions came in. So really forcing myself to read all these books wasn't the best thing because I didn't have the discipline to do it, and it didn't seem as fun as when I first started to give myself this challenge. But you live and you learn. Internal temp high, allow it to cool. All right. We'll come back. All right, so my battery decided to overheat and it shut itself off, but we're going back again. So I just explained 2 reasons why I two things I did wrong with this challenge. There's another one, and the last one was, looking at my notes here, was that I was reading so fast and trying to get through these books that I ended up having to go back and reread sections because I had completely forgotten or didn't retain any of the information that I had just read. I don't know if anybody else has had this problem where you're just trying to read through everything super fast, but you're just not retaining everything. This especially happened when I read textbooks in school and when I was doing AP history. I didn't like those textbooks. Same with AP chemistry. It wasn't very fun just reading through all that information because I just wasn't retaining it. I'd read the same line over and over again and nothing would stick. It was kind of happening in these books where I just needed to slow down and I didn't want to. Usually I'm pretty good with kind of retaining all that information and going pretty fast with my reading, but lately I haven't been able to retain some of those little details and I'll forget them. It happened everywhere. I'm usually pretty good at keeping up with those little details of the different names that are going on, but frequently I'd have to go back and kind of figure out what was going on because I was going too fast and I just needed to slow down and calm down with my reading because it's okay to go slow to comprehend everything. There's nothing wrong with it. I was just forcing myself to read faster than what I would usually do, even though I feel personally that I read pretty fast. It's just, I don't know, the elementary school systems. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, let's move on. But that also kind of happened more with the nonfiction book because Malcolm Gladwell, kind of going into what I learned in this challenge and what I liked about it also. But Malcolm Gladwell, he has a very unique way of giving you information. Talking to Strangers basically wants to answer the question of See, I'm already forgetting everything because I didn't write anything down. And that was one of the other problems that I had, was I didn't take notes on a nonfiction book when I should have. Even though it seems weird to be taking notes on a book outside of a classroom. But it really does help, especially when you do little tabs or give yourself a little note and you ask questions and you have a dialogue with the books that you're reading, especially things that are nonfiction. But yeah, Malcolm Gladwell in Talking to Strangers, he has a unique way of storytelling where he gives a lot of stories that are very entertaining and they're all real life stories to help set and give the answer to an overarching question. And that's what he did in this book, Talking to Strangers. I really liked it, but towards the end, I was having trouble following along because you had to remember so many of the other stories from before, and while they were each unique and they each had their own kind of points, if that makes any sense, stuff that just sticks with you, you kind of get the big points, but some of the things that Malcolm Gladwell would then return to, you'd forget because it had happened all the way in the first chapter and you're already in chapter 15 learning about something new. So I struggled with just keeping that information by going too fast. Yeah, that was a bit of a struggle in my book over here. But yeah, those were the things that I struggled with. I struggled with forcing myself to read all these books in such a short amount of time, getting distracted, and over here looking at my notes so I don't, and trying to read super fast. Those were kind of the main things that I was struggling with. Now let's go on to some of the things that I really liked about this challenge and that I learned about myself. First, one of the things that I really learned about myself in this challenge is know my limits and slowly try to surpass them. 5 books was probably a bit too much. I did end up reading a whole manga series, but finding a good balance between what I like and what I want to get into, I think I do need to work on a bit more with future challenges or just kind of reading more and more. So that is one thing I need to learn, finding that balance and what's the right way to do challenges and get out of my comfort zone a little bit better. Another thing that I learned was read slower. There's nothing wrong with reading slower. Just because you're blazing through a book doesn't mean that you're going to retain all the information, and there's no harm with taking notes, especially if you're a big, physical book person. To me, it feels blasphemous to write in a book, but I've learned that I bought this book. It's okay to write on it and to have a dialogue or write yourself questions and kind of mark things up, especially with nonfiction books, because I feel like you do get more out of them. And if I had done that a bit more, and when I start to read more and more nonfiction, I'm going to start doing that more so that I can get the most and retain things as well. So those are two things that I learned. Some things that I liked about this challenge, I feel like I picked some pretty great books to read. Song of Achilles, I've already told you what I felt about that. Talking to Strangers was a really great first nonfiction book to get me back into it, and Malcolm Gladwell has a great way of telling a story and answering a question that everybody should probably ask themselves, of how we talk to people and how we present ourselves and how other people present themselves to you. And another good question that he brings up is that we tend to default to truth when strangers are talking to us. When somebody tells us something, we automatically think it's true, and he kind of explores that through a bunch of different real life stories and through actual scientific evidence and research that has been done. So I highly recommend I highly recommend reading that book if you're not into nonfiction and you want to try something new, because he does a great job with setting up all these stories and interconnecting all of it into solving one larger question and story as well. And then lastly, reading Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, I think I'll do a little review of it later, but those 3 books that I did finish from the challenge, I'm really happy that I got to read those. I do wish I got to finish the other books, but I will end up doing a video and read them before this summer is up. But yeah, that's kind of all the stream of consciousness and verbiage that I have. All right, to wrap up this video, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and to see how the end of that book challenge went. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment of what book you think I should read next. I am currently reading Haruki Murakami's A Wild Sheep Chase. I really like it so far. I'm definitely going to do my own little book review about it once I finish it sometime in the next week or so. I think I can finish it. I'm starting to take some notes here. But yeah, I am planning on reading Death Note and the first volume of Thor by Jason Aaron. I want to at least get that first Thor volume done before the new Thor movie comes out. So that's kind of the plans that I have in motion right now. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video and for, just giving your time for that. I really appreciate it. Please let me know what books you guys are currently reading, what you guys recommend, anything like that. Thank you guys so much. Have a nice day.